Today I want to talk about something very specific, the difference between old money and new money in Monaco, and what they spend their wealth on, how they spend it, and, most importantly, why. From a distance, Monaco looks uniform. The same yachts, the same watches, the same restaurants, the same luxury cars. At first glance, money appears to blend into a single image. But if you move closer, if you pause and really observe, something becomes clear. Even though wealth in Monaco may look equal, it is never spent in the same way. What we usually see are simply rich people living luxurious lives. What we don't immediately see is which generation that wealth comes from, and that detail changes everything. The real difference between old money and new money is not the size of the numbers, but the relationship they have with those numbers. As we explore this, I won't romanticize it. I'll try to stay impartial, but I won't avoid criticism. Because in Monaco, spending habits are never just personal choices. They carry political, cultural, and class-based messages. So let's go deeper. You will never hear old money shouting in Monaco. Most of the time, you won't even hear it whisper. It is quiet, almost invisible, and yet it is everywhere. When old money spends millions, the focus is not on what is bought, but on what is deliberately left untouched. Instead of flashy super yachts, you'll notice modest boats, often family-owned, passed down for decades, carrying the same name year after year. Brand logos are small, sometimes barely visible. Not because they can't afford more, but because for old money, spending is not a tool to gain status. It is simply a byproduct of status that already exists. This silence is far more expensive than it seems. Old money's quiet presence is built on trust accumulated over generations. These people have very little room for mistakes, but enormous patience. They can wait years for the right investment. To them, time is far more valuable than cash. Old money spends most of its wealth in three areas: continuity, security, and the preservation of legacy. Their real estate is not meant to be sold, but passed on. Art is not an investment, it is part of the family. Education spending is less about tuition and more about building networks. Children are placed in the right circles, not simply the most expensive schools. In Monaco, old money doesn't spend to buy today, it spends to secure the future. And this is the key point. Old money rarely spends for pure consumption. Every expense is about holding a position and protecting it. Every purchase quietly says, "We were here, and we will remain here." That's why their spending is never rushed, never trend-driven, never dictated by fashion. New money moves at a completely different pace. Its wealth hasn't settled yet. It is still seeking acceptance. And because of that, it is loud. Massive yachts, extremely expensive cars, the newest watches, the most visible restaurants. Much of this spending is reactive. With every purchase, new money is trying to send a message. "I'm here, look at me." But visibility must be maintained constantly. The system does not automatically trust new money. That's why its spending never slows down. It can't pause, it can't relax. Because the moment it does, it risks disappearing from view. And here lies the contradiction. Money that tries too hard to prove its permanence ends up exposing how temporary it really is. It's like struggling in a swamp. The more you fight, the deeper you sink. In Monaco, new money spends primarily to be seen. VIP tables, private invitations, sponsored events. Being everywhere becomes the goal. In this ongoing fight for relevance, most expenses are symbolic rather than economic. But symbols are expensive. And over time, those costs cause wealth to evaporate quickly. More importantly, none of this visibility brings new money any closer to old money. In fact, it makes the distance between them even clearer. Because old money has already moved beyond the need to be seen. Now imagine this. Old money and new money walk into the same restaurant. Old money sits quietly at a corner table. it doesn't check the menu, it already knows it. New money sits at the center in full view. The menu becomes a performance. The wine selection turns into a presentation. Photos are taken, posted, shared. This single scene perfectly captures Monaco. The same place, two completely different philosophies of spending. The key detail here is not who pays more, it's who leaves less of a trace. In elite circles, being noticed is not always an advantage. Sometimes the greatest form of power is not being remembered at all. So I ask you this, who is more powerful? The one who spends loudly or the one who spends quietly? In Monaco, power often lives in silence, and that silence comes at a higher price than most people realize. Silence is bought with history, connections, and trust. That's why no amount of spending can allow new money to imitate old money's restraint. Because that kind of silence is built over time, not with money. At this point, the story becomes political. Old money spends in harmony with the system. Tax advantages, foundations, cultural institutions. Its wealth reinforces the existing order. New money, on the other hand, often challenges it. Fast money is spent fast. And even in a tightly controlled place like Monaco, this creates fractures, small at first, but powerful in the long run. For new money, the most expensive costs are invisible. The dinner invitation that never comes, the committee they're not included in, the door that stays closed. And this leads to the central difference of this entire story. Old money uses spending to preserve the system itself. New money tries to buy a place within it. That's why one is accepted and the other merely tolerated. And tolerance is fragile. It's temporary. At the first sign of crisis, the system protects what it accepts and discards what it only tolerates. That pattern never changes. Monaco teaches us a simple lesson. Money does not equalize people. It separates them. And that separation is most visible in how wealth is spent. Old money grows quietly through preservation and investment. New money shrinks by putting itself on display. One buys time, the other buys moments, and once those moments pass, they are forgotten. That's why in Monaco, true wealth is not measured by what you buy, but by what you don't rush to buy. Patience here is the most expensive luxury of all. If you enjoyed this analysis, don't just watch and move on. Share it, leave a comment, and tell me which elite structure you'd like to explore next. Because you can't understand power without understanding money. And you can't understand the system without understanding power. On this channel, we focus on what happens behind the scenes, not just what's visible on the surface. And this conversation becomes more valuable the more people take part.